I'm John Batchelor. Mary Kissel, who promises to be on. On.
It's one of my favorite topics, John.
She's on. IRS.
Love it.
Everybody immediately, their heads snap to the radio. Oh, where are they going with this? You know where we're going. We're going to drive this truck right down the highway. Mary Kissel, the editorial board of the Wall Street Journal and the host of OpinionJournal.com, each day at 1 p.m.
Just Opinion Journal, John. Just Opinion Journal.
Excuse me. We're joined by Frances Rose of Federal News Radio. In Depth with Frances Rose each afternoon in Washington. Frances is skilled at helping us in and out of the federal government workforce. These are professionals. They're not political appointees. They have jobs to do, families to take care of, and the burden of government administration to administration falls on the shoulders of hardworking people. That's enough to say that the IRS is a puzzle to all of us from the outside. Frances, the White House this week, using Mr. Carney, and I believe the president, but we'll stay with Mr. Carney, using the modifier phony scandals, and under that umbrella, of course, the IRS and all the others. This is a puzzle to me, Frances, and I ask for your help. There is nothing about the information so far about the IRS, the patriot groups, the Tea Party groups targeted specifically, their applications stalled for years, some instances, all of them deprived of the ability to raise money and participate in one or two political cycles. We now know, thanks to the testimony developed at Darrell Issa, that it is not 2 or 4 rogue employees in Cincinnati. It's at the technical office in Washington where lawyers live, and Carter Hull was until he retired. And Mr. Hull and others have pointed to the chief counsel's office, which is a large group of 1,600 attorneys. My God, it's a big outfit. But at the top of it is a man by the name of Wilkins. Wilkins is a Democratic op before he was chief counsel. Is that correct? Good evening to you, Frances.
Good evening, John. Yeah, that's correct. And he is one, like many people in Washington, who has been on the Hill. He's been in private practice as an attorney, a tax attorney, and now working at the Internal Revenue Service. There are people like that of both stripes, of independent stripes even, walking around Washington all the time. You never know when you're going to run into them, John.
The concern here is that the Darrell Issa's committee has asked for millions of documents, and they've asked for help in understanding who supervised, who signed off on what appears to be the abuse of IRS's power to hold up applications for nonprofit status.
I think we know it's abuse, John. It's not appears.
No, right.
It is abuse.
I'm being too careful. I'm too careful. It is abuse. And Frances, it's been several months now, and the investigation keeps getting quieted down, and then all of a sudden, Mr. Carney uses the word phony. Does that puzzle Washington? Does that puzzle the federal workforce? Because I recall in the Rose Garden in a conference with the Prime Minister of Turkey, Mr. Erdogan, under rainy skies, a very attractive Marine holding an umbrella for the president, that the president maintained it was the first he'd heard of it, and he was outraged. He fired the acting head of the IRS at that moment, brought in Danny Werfel. They were outraged in May, and now it's phony. Can you explain this transformation, Frances?
Well, it's interesting you point that out, John. I talked to a Democratic friend of mine on the Hill today, and this person pointed out that fact and then pointed out the Inspector General's report. J. Russell George has reported on this, answered a pretty heavy criticism from Elijah Cummings, the ranking member of the House Oversight Committee, at the hearing last week that you referenced that Carter Hull testified at, and came out of it, by all accounts, just pointing to the fact, listen, this information's in my report. If you want to fight with me about what I wrote in my report, we can go to the facts and review them. And inspectors general, of course, are trained to report facts and only facts. So that idea that the scandal is phony seems to be a bit of a stretch, at least, on the Hill.
Well, Frances, we've had a lot, let's be honest here. I mean, I know I've just met you, but we've had a lot of misleading statements here from the White House. First, it was just a Cincinnati problem. Then we found out that Washington was involved. Then, it was just the Tea Party groups. But no, actually, it was pro-Israel organizations and others. Then, the White House wasn't involved, but oops, now we found out the chief counsel's office is involved.
And was it a meeting 2 days before the policies changed, April of 2012, with 12 other people, but we don't have an adequate explanation for why Mr. Wilkins was at the White House 48 hours before the policy, in addition, Mary.
In addition. But the House Republicans, Francis, seem to be being very careful in that they're sort of following the breadcrumbs up the chain. But why is it that the Democrats just aren't dumping all the information out? I mean, the House investigators have a small fraction of the number of documents that they've requested. Why not just overload them with the documents? Say, here, have them all.
I think it's a calendar issue, Mary, and I think your observation is correct. But Washington, D.C., we're here like the rest of the world in the end of July. About 4 days from now, Washington essentially goes dark until Labor Day. Members of Congress will all leave on Friday. They'll go to their states and districts, and nothing will happen for the next month or so. And so I think if you're building a case, just hypothetically, I think it behooves you to just kind of let it lie for a little while, let your staff do the research behind the scenes, and see what you have when you come back and when people start paying attention again at the beginning of September, because really nobody's going to be paying much attention to what's going on in Washington, especially Washington media people.
I want to check with you, Mary, on this, because I do reporting all week long in many directions, but whenever these three letters come up, IRS, heads snap around, and people focus on what do you got? Where are we going with this? And Peggy Noonan has a piece up on the Wall Street Journal right now. There's not a daily drumbeat, but there certainly is a developing story here where there are huge missing pieces. At this point, Mary, would you measure this the most threatening story to the administration of all the stories that are being talked about? Is this the most threatening?
I think this is the most threatening story to the American polity. Forget the administration. Forget Democratic or Republican. We have no link here to the White House, John. So What does that suggest? That suggests that we have a bureaucracy that has now grown so out of control that they think that it's okay to pick political winners and losers and to say, you know what, these guys, we're going to stonewall them past 2 election cycles, and these guys, they're okay.
Francis, there's a lot of damage to the IRS. The IRS is about to be a big piece of the success of the Affordable Care Act. I speak aspirationally, okay?
Yeah, huge.
The IRS has a reputation now 100 years old. And I would say that the house is on fire. Does the IRS act like the house is on fire? Is there an awareness at that building, Francis?
I'm not really sure, John, that they are paying much attention, to be honest with you. I mean, one of the things that I get fed to me on my show every once in a while is, we've done this survey on the most popular and least popular federal agencies. Do you want to do an interview about it? And the IRS is inevitably last. And so I think they're kind of used to not being the cool kids, not being the most popular federal agency around. And I think it really just doesn't faze them that much anymore.
Or, Francis, are they in such a bubble at the IRS and at the White House that they don't grasp just how serious a scandal and a threat this is to the country?
Well, that's possible, I suppose, but it strikes me more that it's just kind of bouncing off of whatever they consider themselves to be.
We're going to give them our medical records. We're going to give them our employment terms. We're going to hand all that over to them, and they promise not to share it. Is that right, Francis?
That's what the law calls for right now.
But Francis, this isn't an organization that just slow-walked conservative groups' tax-exempt status. This is an organization that went out and leaked donor lists of Mitt Romney's, of Koch-backed organizations. I mean, this is a group that has acted as a political hammer.
And we don't have names yet. That's the puzzle to us in New York.
Except for Lois Lerner.
Yeah.
We have Lois Lerner.
Associated with the Fifth Amendment. Well, that's her right. But Francis, are we going to get names? You say after Labor Day. Is that where they're coming? Is there any talk about names?
No talk about names, John, but that's my sense. I mean, we're essentially, you know the story behind the Friday dump. You dump documents that you don't want people to pay attention to on Friday.
5 o'clock.
Yeah, and this is, I think this would be an August dump if they did it now. Nobody would pay any attention.
Francis Rose of In Depth with Francis Rose at Federal News Radio each afternoon in Washington. Mary Kissel, editorial board of the Wall Street Journal. Thank you, Mary. I'm John Batchelor.